Hi, I'm Dave Cut, and you're watching another Comic Chat. What's up, guys? Back again today with the third and final chapter of Peter Parker Spider-Man Back in Black. And so far in the story, Peter Parker is on the run from the law, and Aunt May got shot by accident when Kingpin put a hit out on Spider-Man. And in the first chapter, we saw Calvin Zaba experimenting on people trying to make his own Spider-Man. And in the second chapter, we saw Eddie Brock, aka Venom, in the same hospital as Aunt May. And in this final chapter, we have Peter Parker going through some flashbacks and actually meeting death and trying to save Aunt May. And this is The Sensational Spider-Man, number 40. And we start out in the borough of Queens, in the city of New York, with a boy whose name was Peter. And this boy was blameless and upright, with a good heart who never turned toward evil. Despite an early tragedy he didn't even remember, it seemed as if there was a protective wall around him and his house, his uncle, and his aunt on every side. Except when Peter was away from home at school. But then, as it has been in high school, so will it ever be. The boy bore this daily humiliation bravely, never letting them taint his soul, and for whatever reason, his belief that the world was basically a good place never really wavered. Growing up, he never craved glory or greatness. He wanted simply to be content, and had faith that he would be, until the day, like a serpent slithering into a garden, a certain spider lowered itself into his life, and cursed the good boy named Peter, as we see the spider bite him. Or blessed him, though that depends on who's telling the story, and, in the end, which side, good or evil, wins. One thing was for certain, though. From that faithful day on, it was as if a dark cloud settled over Peter Parker and followed him home that terrible night, as we see the night when he let the criminal go by and it turned out that he kills and shoots Uncle Ben. And as Spider-Man goes after this criminal, he has a moment of truth. Who can say what a weaker person would have done? Turned from goodness, cursed the heavens, forsaken everything honorable and decent in the world? Possibly, but not Peter Parker. He actually ended up turning him in. And as devastating as it was, his uncle's death was only the first of many trials Peter would endure over the years. Of course, there were more deaths. His arch enemy, the Green Goblin, as he's impaled by his own glider. His first and some say truest love, Gwen Stacy, as she hit her head and snapped her back backward. And on to the present, to his Aunt May, who lies in the hospital bed barely hanging on. As we see MJ walking into the hospital room, checking on Peter, asking if he's doing okay because he does not look that great. And him telling her that all things considered, no, he is not doing good. He's not doing good at all. And instead, he's actually going to go out and, he says, blow off some steam to hurt something. So we see through the city, there's a loud clang, clang, clang. And we come to find out that it's actually Peter, and he's in an alleyway beating up some dumpsters when he's approached by a strange man who says he's not looking for any trouble, but Peter's not in any mood to talk to anyone. But the strange man offers to buy Peter some food, even calling him by his name. But that doesn't really shock Peter because ever since he unmasked, everybody knows who he is. And the mysterious man tells him that his hands are pretty messed up. And Peter says, yeah, he knows, but he heals fast. And the old man says, you're welcome, Peter. And Peter's shocked to look down at his hands and to see that they're completely healed. And Peter says, you snuck up on me and my spider sense didn't go off. Who are you? And the mysterious man says, come on, Peter. You know who I am. As he flashes powers at him, Peter comes to an understanding and just says yes. And this mysterious man says, all right then, lunch, some food, my treat. As they sit down to eat, the mysterious man notices that Peter's not eating any of his food. Peter says he doesn't really have much of an appetite. And the mysterious man tells him he needs to eat to keep his strength up. And Peter kind of harshly reacts as saying, "Is that what I need to eat?" Going even further, saying, "I know you're busy and an omnipotent, and I'm just some fleck, this nothing. But since we're here, since we're breaking bed, maybe you wouldn't mind telling me if my aunt dying is all part of your cosmic scheme, your grand design for my pitiful life." And this mysterious man just says, "If I told you it were, what would you do, Peter?" As Peter thinks about it for a couple seconds, he says, "I would beg you to save her. I would tell you I'd give up anything to save her." As he questions even being Spider-Man, and no hesitation, he says, in a heartbeat, "If you could rewrite my life story so that that spider bites someone else, and I'm spared all the death I've experienced over the years, my Uncle Ben, Gwen, her father, Harry, you could do that, couldn't you?" And the mysterious man looks at him for a sec and just says, "I want to take you somewhere." So I'm kind of guessing that this guy's probably Death. They flash to the beach, and Peter asks where they are, and Death says they're at Coney Island. And Peter actually remembers coming here as a kid with Uncle Ben and Aunt May. And Death says, "Take a walk with me down the border." And Peter asks, "Did I do something bad to deserve this? Is being Spider-Man punishment for something that I committed in the past life?" And Death says, "No, not at all." And Peter is just trying to understand, saying, "Okay, so is it a test? Because if I'm being tested, then let me fail, because I have to tell you, I'm this close to breaking." And Death just telling him it's not a test. And Peter begging, "Just please, can you explain? Just let me know. Let me understand why." And Death finally breaks and says, "Oh, Peter, Peter, Peter. Human suffering is one of the mysteries. It happens for no good reason. And the people who endure it, it doesn't always make them better. You're one of the rare exceptions. Usually, it makes them worse. It happens to everyone, though. Hard to explain why it's necessary to someone who hasn't been there for the foundation of Earth, or when the first walls were built around the oceans. What's the point of anything then? I mean, if it's beyond understanding." As they continue to walk, they come up on a sea of people. As Death says, "Well, for starters, there's some of the point, Peter." And Peter, stunned, asks who they are. And Death tells him they're an itsy bitsy teeny weeny sampling of the thousands upon thousands of people you've saved as Spider-Man over the years. Parents, children, grandparents, entire families. Thousands upon thousands. And of course, he's counting team ups and everything else, but it's kind of weird. You forget. You pass into their lives, then out of them, and in a matter of minutes, or even seconds, you forget that their lives continue after you swing away. They go back to their homes, their jobs, their apartments, but because something you did, you, Peter Parker, their life keeps moving. As they continue to walk along the beach, Peter thanks Death for what he did, saying that was nice, and Death just saying, "You're welcome." It doesn't really answer any of your questions. It doesn't really make the suffering any more bearable, does it? And Peter just responding with no. And Death tells him, "We all have a purpose, Peter. We all have a role to play. This, fortunately or unfortunately, is yours. And if it's any consolation, I've asked a lot more from people much closer to me than you." And Peter responds, "It's like we're all pieces of plankton adrift in the ocean, at the mercy of forces we can't control." As Peter finally lets out one last plea, "I don't want my aunt to die. Please don't let her die." And Death just says, "I have faith." And Peter turning and saying what, as he ends up back in the alley, and Death disappears. So, how does this story end? For the moment, let's just say it doesn't end here, in the alley behind the hospital in New York City. Let's say it ends many, many years from now, with the man Peter Parker and his family surviving whatever hardships come their way, with Peter growing old and white-haired alongside the woman he loves, and their children, Benjamin and Mary. Let's say it ends with all of them blessed with the Book of Peter. So next we have The Sensational Spider-Man Annual #1. And this story starts off with Peter having a surprise for MJ. And when she opens her eyes, they're actually on the top of a skyscraper. I don't know about you guys. I don't really like heights. I wouldn't like that, but she seems to love it. She says it's all spread out down there. It looks so tiny and perfect. It looks like an entire world of possibility just waiting for us. Up here, we can be anybody we want. As we flash to earlier, we see Mary Jane going into a coffee shop, but getting stopped by an old friend named Brady, who we can see used to be her old security guard. And her kind of saying, well, isn't he in the wrong coast for this? And him telling her that he got relocated for some security work out here, small world, and offers to buy her a cup of joe and reminisce about old times. And she sells him, Brady, we can sit, we can talk, we can have a cup of coffee and get caught up and do each other's hair and talk about what boys we like, but seriously, you gotta stop saying my name so much and so loud. And he agrees, so they sit down to have a cup of coffee, and Mary Jane starts noticing things about the place, like how there's a new guy working the register, and it kind of catches Brady's eye because he says, how long have you been coming here? You seem to know all the clerks, huh? She thinks back to when they used to come here in high school, and it used to be the four of them, Mary Jane, Harry Osborn, Gwen Stacy, and Peter Parker, all coming there to have fun, joke around, and she remembers Peter used to always say that he liked it there because it didn't attract a lot of attention and it feels quiet and safe, and it felt like the four of them could stay there forever. As we flash back, she tells Brady she's been going there forever, and Brady finally kind of starting to let the cat out of the bag as he says, "You haven't figured it out yet." And we look around and we can see a bunch of agents watching her, and her just yawning and saying, "Oh no," and him saying, "Oh yeah. You think I haven't read the news in the last 6 months, Mary Jane? You think I don't know who you are and who you're married to? Brady O'Brien, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Give us Peter Parker or you're under arrest." We flash to across town at Hopper's Diner, where we see Peter walk in saying, "I want you to arrest me." And as he sits down, we find out that this is actually Detective Lamont. And Peter tells him, "So I woke up this morning in a $2 squat out." And Detective Lamont urges him not to tell him where. And Peter just says, "In a $2 squat out. And my wife is terrified. My aunt is dying. And I'm forcing her to live in a freaking Hotel 11. He says, "I'm sick and tired of it. I woke up sick and ashamed and embarrassed that this is what I've done to my family. She's dying, Lamont. And I'm hiding like an animal. She's dying and still protecting me. And I know I feel different this afternoon or tonight or tomorrow, but I swear to God, right now, the idea that I'm becoming the man that forces his family to hide to protect him makes me sick. I want you to take me in, and I want total immunity for my family. My whole life, these women, what I've put them through, I want to be there for them for a change." And Lamont kind of butting in here saying, "Sounds to me like these girls of yours can teach you about manning up, Parker. Why would they hang you out to dry?" Parker just pleading, saying, "How much more can we take? You don't know what they had to endure, what all the women in my life had to do to survive." As he flashes back to when they were kids, saying, "Even when we were kids, especially MJ, she's always been my rock. We all clung to each other for survival. And we were all so outclassed. Man, just totally outgunned by those girls. They could play us like fiddles, and we let them." We flash back to the cafe where Brady's telling MJ that she's kind of running out of time, kind of urging her to take this deal, telling her, "Come on, Mary Jane, bring May Parker with you. It's time that the Parker women bring the spider nightmare to an end." And MJ telling him, "End? It'll never end. You don't know what he's lived through, what he's lost, and what it costs him." As she flashes back to when they were kids, saying, "What it costs all of us. We were kids, we were babies, and the thing that just sucked us all in. Life is hard enough when you're, I don't know, growing up but not quite grown up. The thing is, the thing only Pete knew, the burden Pete had to carry all alone. It was his nightmare. We were all just living in it." As we flash back to Peter starting to cry and saying this is no way to live. And Lamont kind of coming over and giving him some tough love as he rips the fake mustache off his face and says, "Don't be an idiot. Think of your wife, Peter." And Peter pulls out a picture of Aunt May and Uncle Ben saying this was his whole world, and ever since Uncle Ben died, things haven't been the same, and kind of pouring his heart out, using Detective Lamont as kind of a therapist. As we cut back to MJ, kind of doing the same thing with Brady, but she recaps the Christmas before Peter and her got together, when she had made him a mixtape to express her feelings for him, and she wanted him to make a mixtape for her as well. But what he actually made her was half an episode of Nova he taped off PBS about rhinos. We flash back to them walking down the street and her questioning him, like, why not music? As we can also see her thoughts running through her head. She says, oh God, don't blow this, please, just don't blow this, dummy. He tells her that he does not listen to music. He didn't want to fake it, so he made something that he likes, and he just likes boring and stupid things. As we can see running through her head, she's saying, I'm a horrible and unlovable hag, and I will die alone. She says, in spite of him being a giant nerd, she still got him something. As she pulls out a Santa hat with mistletoe on it, she's thinking, don't freak out, don't freak out. Oh, you freaked him out, you desperate loser. As she's telling him that it's actually mistletoe on there, he kind of abruptly leaves as she's left standing there thinking, alone. You're gonna die alone. Now, Brady's kind of getting fed up. And time's starting to run out for her, but she just says her loyalty runs deep and she wouldn't give up Peter like that. We can see Peter talking with Lamont, and he actually recaps the same night. We can see him walking down the street, and we can see what Peter's actually thinking during this whole time as he's thinking, oh God, she thinks you're a giant, boring turbo nerd. You totally blew this. Stupid. And that the reason that he gave her the PBS recording was because it was on magnetic fields. Still pretty nerdy, but I get it. Attraction. We can even see what's going through his head as she pulls out the Santa hat with the mistletoe. He knew exactly. He says, oh man, mistletoe means she wants to kiss. And then as he abruptly left her, he's clearly wanted to, but he chickened out as he says, kiss her, you chicken. Chicken, stupid, boring chicken man, as he walks away. And as Lamont gets a page, Peter's spider sense goes off and he tells her that they had just picked up MJ at a coffee shop. And he tells him like he already knows she kind of paged him already. And Lamont lets him go and he says to go save your wife. We can see MJ reminiscing still about the past as Brady is just kind of over the whole thing, as he slams his fist down. He tells her that it's either him or her. As she flashes back to walking Peter to his gate at the airport, we can see what's going through both their minds as he's saying, do it, just grab her, and her thinking the same thing, do it. As he finally grabs her, and you can see it's their first kiss. As he leaves, he says, I'll be back, and him thinking, I swear for you, I always will be back. And she thinking, always and forever, I'll be waiting. As we see Lamont break out the cuffs and starting to arrest MJ, he sees that she was actually had a tracker with her the entire time. And that she wasn't actually just reminiscing, she was stalling. As we see Spider-Man crash through the window and in an instant dodges every single one of those agents in there, swoops up MJ and is gone. As we see Brady left standing there saying, stop, you're both under arrest. And as Peter and MJ are swinging away, we can see that MJ's apologizing to Peter because, she got put in that situation and Brady was a person from her past. And we see Peter telling her that you don't ever have to apologize about this. As she tells him that she just wants to go up. He starts swinging higher and higher till they reach the top of a skyscraper. As we see her tell him maybe the rest of the world thinks marriage is something to do between other marriages, but it means something more to her. That Peter's her partner and her husband, and she loves him, and that this is their life. You and me forever, as we see to have and to hold. And that's it, and that's where we leave it with Aunt May on the brink of death, and Peter not being able to help her and still running from the law. And they have some bonus comics in here, but I don't think I'm going to get into that. It doesn't really have anything to do with the story, but this has been the Peter Parker's Spider-Man Back in Black. Next up, we'll do the What If Black in Black, where it's a what if MJ had actually gotten shot instead of Aunt May. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for hanging out. And until next time, have a good one.